Good morning, Bitcoin, and welcome to Let's Meet the World Crypto Network with Max Hillebrand. I'm Thomas Hunt. Today is June 28th, 2018, and this is just a show to introduce you to potential new contributors on the World Crypto Network. And before any of the old contributors get set, I'd be glad to interview you too. I think this is a good chance for people to get their question answered, to get the behind-the-scenes background, and to really get to know the people of the World Crypto Network. So first, I'll introduce our guest, Max. How's it going, Max?
Hey, Thomas, I'm doing really well. I'm super glad that I'm on your show. I really enjoy calling into the live talk show, which is amazing. I've been following the World Crypto Network for quite some time now, and I'm really humbly honored to be on here, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to a great discussion, which I'm sure we're going to have.
And that's how we discovered you. Just a couple of weeks ago, I started doing the Bitcoin talk show every day, and we've started to get some regular callers. And this is a great thing because the regular callers are familiar and they're used to calling and they share their own information. And Max was really great sharing his information. He had a lot of technical details. So we decided to reach out to him and to get Max started here on the World Crypto Network, where he's going to start out as a co-host on some Bitcoin talk shows. Get him ready to talk on the air all the time. And then when he feels comfortable, we'll start him out on his own call-in show. And you can call in and ask Max questions. And like Max was saying, it's a good idea because he's in the European market. So I'm in America, Max is in Germany, and together we can cover more ground. We can have more shows at different times. So no matter where you are, you can always have a World Crypto Network show to call in. And Max may be the first of the recent new recruits, but he won't be the last. We're looking for a lot of new people. We have a lot of airtime to fill. A long time ago, I started this idea, and I said, maybe we'll be like the CNN or the NPR, maybe even the PBS of crypto. And you know what that means, 24/7, 365, nonstop reporting about Bitcoin. But I'm just one person. I can't do it all by myself. I tried to get new people to join us. And if you want to join us, then give us a call on Bitcoin Talk Show, get it started. The other thing I suggest is that if you want to start your own YouTube channel, I suggest to do 10 weekly shows. And if you can do 10 weekly shows, you've shown the commitment that you need, and you've got a chance to fix your technical issues and to get used to talking live and all these kind of things and all the mistakes that you make and having to just go forward, ignore that mistake. And once you get used to that, we'd be glad to add you to the World Crypto Network as well. Right now, people just send me their email on Skype or on Skype is good, or Twitter. And then I'll add you to the Slack chat. And then it mainly becomes how much you want to contribute. If you want to do a show, you have to kind of design the show, pitch it to us, tell us when it would be on, who would watch it, that kind of thing. And then we'll have you and get set and get going. Also, if you have your own YouTube channel already and you don't want to give that up, you could just join the World Crypto Network podcast. We're doing audio podcasts with a variety of shows, including Adam Meister, Andy Hoffman, and even J.W. Weatherman, although I don't know if he wants to be a podcaster or a content creator. He has to work on that. But it's going on really good, and we just thought we'd sit here and talk to Max and see what's going on. So, Max, just a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Were you into sports?
Well, I have always lived in Germany, and I grew up in the southern region, close to Augsburg, which is close to Munich in Bavaria. So I grew up there in a really small town and just enjoyed the country life there. And you know, it's Germany, so we had a lot of beer. Yes, we did, but it is delicious. Then after, or when I was 14, I moved with my family to the border of Switzerland, Austria, and Liechtenstein. So there's this big lake right in the middle there, which is called the Lake of Constance, and we live just a bit off there. So it's a beautiful area. You know, you have nice rolling hills, beautiful forests, and of course the Alps and the Lake of Constance. It is a beautiful place to live. It's absolutely astonishing. Yes.
So Munich, that sounds fantastic. I noticed their suits while I was in Germany. They had a very unusual button style and a kind of a recessed pocket. And I wanted one, but it was not cold enough, and I couldn't bring any more clothing home. But I saw a couple at the thrift shop, and I was like, yeah, that looks nice. Like kind of an Asian suit, but it's a Munich suit. So.
Yes, it is a traditional Bavarian clothing, and it's both this specific type of jacket, which is also really common in Austria, But then what we have in Bavaria specifically is, of course, the Lederhosen. And that might be a fun fact, but I actually did something that is called Schuhplatteln, which is horrible to pronounce, especially for your English people. But it basically means we dress up in like old traditional Bavarian clothes, which mean the Lederhosen. And then we just started tap dancing and hitting our, our calves and our thighs. And because you hit on leather, it makes this really, really loud clapping sound. And it's this traditional dance mixed with a lot of beer drinking, a lot of dancing, a lot of beautiful women, and just having a nice time at the beer fest. And that's pretty much how I grew up. And those jackets are beautiful.
It sounds fantastic. I did get to see some Hungarian dancing while I was in Budapest, and it sounds very similar with the slapping of the feet, and kind of a guy was out there doing a solo, and he was incredible, and the band was just playing along with him. So very cool stuff. How'd you learn English so good, Max? My German is terrible.
Well, dude, German is hard, and my German is really, really bad, especially the technical stuff. If you want to know something about grammatic, I cannot help you. Like, no chance. The difference between der, die, das, and all the articles, it's horrible. Well, I was really fortunate enough. I have a 2-year older sister and a younger sister as well. And my sister, she got into first class, elementary school, and they had a first English lesson, and she really didn't like it, and she really wasn't that good. And so my mother decided, okay, well, this public school system is really not going to do it. So we're going to try to look for a private school. And what we actually found was this really, really cool dude. He was kind of like a Buddhist monk / hippie / entrepreneur, and just overall amazing human being. And he taught us in this really fluent and really, native speaking like approach to just speak it. We never wrote anything. We just sat there and talked about stuff. And as always, I think that's the best way to do it. Just go out and do it, live it. And that's the only way that you can actually learn a language. And I was really, really fortunate enough to then, before I even went to government school, I had my first lessons in English. And till this day, that teacher is a big friend of mine, and he's just an amazing human being. And that's how it started. And that guy, he planted the seed into our heads, both my sister and I, that we should definitely go 1 year abroad. And he planted that seed pretty much from the beginning. And so eventually my sister went, after her high school, she went to Kansas and went there to the American high school and just spent a year there and had an amazing experience. Of course, learned a lot of stuff, and you grow really a bunch. If you are gone for a year, when you're like 15, 16 years old, that really grows you up. And it was an amazing experience for her. And so really fortunately, I got the chance to do this as well. And so I lived in Minnesota, close to Minneapolis. It was an incredible, amazing experience. And it is really a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I can only suggest anyone to maybe think about doing that. And if you have missed that opportunity, well, maybe your kids can get the chance. But just growing up and being on your own in a foreign country, and just being out there and having to get it done and having a good time while doing that, that's just amazing.
Yeah, that would have been great to do a year abroad. It's funny, I've never been to Kansas, but I have been to Minnesota. So It's pretty cool. My buddy Blake lives out there. I went and visited him one time, and fun place, a little bit of rain, a little bit of snow, kind of all out by itself there. But that's a much better way of learning English than just watching Friends episodes or movies. I hear a lot of that. I can understand it myself. I went over there and I saw how pervasive the American media machine was. Marvel action figures everywhere, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. This is all America. It's all Hollywood. And they love it there like they love it here. And I know a lot of people that told me, they're like, yeah, I had to learn English so I could watch the TV properly. I'd watch it the other way. It wouldn't quite work for me. And then once they started learning it, then they could watch the TV and the movies, and they were happy.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think that watching movies in the foreign language is a good place to start, because it's similar to having a conversation. You just hear normal people talking and you get used to that. And eventually you're just going to know what they're talking about without even knowing the correct words. So I'm at that stage where I my English is much better than my German, and I have so many words that I know in English that I just have no clue what they mean in German. And it's a bizarre point to be in, but yeah, I guess that's just educating yourself in different language, and it's just a lot of fun doing that.
And what an exciting world with so many languages. Here in America, it's more of a Spanish and English type environment. But when you go to Europe, you travel for a few hours, you're in a totally different country, completely different history, different language, and everything. So it's really a good thing over there that a lot of people speak English. And I don't know. I was able to get away with quite a lot with just my English, and then I had a little bit of French that I just kept using everywhere I went. I was like, I'd get to Germany, and I'd be like, oh crap, I don't know how to say sorry in Germany, and it's something like Ingelsplit or something, and I was like, merci, merci beaucoup, merci. You know, I just pretended to be a lost French person because I was prepared for France because they were supposed to be super rude. So I was like, I wanted to apologize all the time. So I learned how to say like merci or whatever it was, apologies, some kind of thing. but that's what I mainly focused on, is how to say sorry in every country I was in, so I don't offend people. But
well, you need to know how to say I'm sorry, and you need to know where can I get the good beer. I know those are always the two important stuff that you need to know. But I'm sure that Rico in the chat is probably really glad that you at least speak some French. And well, if he's on the show the next time, then well, maybe you can do the introduction in French.
The guy in the chat has it. It's Entschuldigung, Entschuldigung, or something like that. Is I'm sorry in German, or at least I'm butchering it. Say it right, Max. Give the people.
And
the computer.
German is such. Oh, well, German is a really, really ugly language. For example, if you take, you know, the little beautiful, tiny, and loving butterfly, you know, it's just such a cute little thing, and it sounds.
I got that one. Cute. Schmetterling. Schmetterling.
Yes. which means to like destroy stuff. And why would you name such a beautiful little creature something like to destroy and slap it down? What is up with us Germans, man? We're messed up.
I like the combined language, like Schadenfreude. I said it wrong or something, but those ones where they combine a bunch of words together, and the Germans have those words. I mean, not Liebestrom, but you know what I'm saying? Those cool combined words that only the Germans have that express such a great feeling, and you can't even get a matching word for it in English. They have special words.
Yes, because we interlock a lot of words, and there are really, really long words in Germany, and it is good to be specific, but you know, it also makes it really difficult, and well, that it's doable. Certainly, I'm glad that I grew up speaking German, so I didn't have to learn it.
That's what I think every Chinese or Japanese speaker says, because I look at those characters and the kanji, and I even try to listen to them talking, and it's just so fast. I can't get any of it, and it's such a complicated language. So yeah, I'm pretty happy that English is the world's language, and I'm just in a good place because I happen to learn English. But let's get back on topic here, Max. So how did you learn about Bitcoin? You're a pretty young guy. Where did you learn about this Bitcoin thing?
Yeah, so the first time I heard about Bitcoin was back in 2012. But, well, unfortunately, someone explained it to me, and he did a decent job explaining it, but, you know, I didn't really get it. And then I was like, okay, this is just, you know, freaky internet money. This is just some scam, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And as pretty much everyone else, I ignored it for a long time, which, of course, now in hindsight, I kick myself in the ass. But, well, that's how it goes. Well, eventually, you know, you just keep hearing it in the news, and there are, of course, so many buzzwords. And I was convinced that, oh, yeah, the blockchain and the diamonds on the blockchain. And that was like, oh, insurance on the blockchain and then stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And then, thank God, I finally found Andreas Antonopoulos. And I watched my first video by him on February 23rd, 2016. I still remember that day, because that was the first day that he blew my mind completely. And I just was sitting there and could not fathom the possibilities, because I just got the glimpse, and that was enough, because the rest I could just imagine. And exactly one day after. So I registered on an exchange that day. It wasn't Coinbase, it was anycoin.direct, like some weird German site. I don't even think it's around anymore. But the day after that registration was complete, and I invested like $20 or something into it. And thank God I realized, because I think he taught me this in the first video, to always hold your own private keys. So, you know, I got a wallet on my laptop, and I got my Bitcoin there, and then I realized the first time you do a Bitcoin transaction, it's always fascinating, and it's mind blowing. It really is. And pretty much ever since then, I fell down the rabbit hole hard. It was a steep, and a fast and a thorough fall, but I enjoyed every second of it, and I'm still enjoying it right now.
It was really amazing. I remember my first Bitcoin transaction, and I think part of what your friend might have done wrong in 2012 is that he didn't demonstrate it to you. If you meet someone on the street and you're trying to tell them what Bitcoin is, it might be easier just to get them to install a wallet and to send them $1. And even if it costs you $1 to send them that dollar, it's still $1 well spent, because you're potentially convincing someone about how to use the world's new money. And it's like email. I tell everyone you should learn how to use it now, because you might have someone to email in the future. And they're all kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. But unless you give them that dollar in Bitcoin, they don't get to try it. They don't get to see it. They don't see that it's not reversible. You know, you think it's a scam, but if you look at your dollar 5 days later, it's still there. And maybe it's even worth $1.20 or $1.30. I mean, that's where you're starting to say, maybe this is the good kind of scam. So I think demonstrations are very important. So.
And especially if you send them like 50 cents or $1, and then you tell them, well, you know, it's not that much, but you can make like 100 transactions with that. Then they are really mind blown, because then they understand, okay, although this is, you know, the base layer, and you didn't get yet into Lightning and all that kind of stuff, but they just realize, oh shit, this is money for the internet by the internet. And, you know, that's when it starts. Yeah.
Well, it's so mind-blowing too, because the creator's invisible. We don't know who the creator is. He disappeared. The code was released to the internet. Other people now maintain the code on their own. These are people that probably don't know about open source. They probably don't know about Linux. And when you're describing all of this, they just think it's insane. How can you govern that? How can you make sure that the code works together, or somebody doesn't put a virus in? And to tell them the truth, that people actually look at every line of code. And it's like a big, like a Bible or something that we're all working together on, and different people wrote different parts. But there's a lot of people, they've read the whole Bible, and we're talking line by line. They know that Bible by heart, and that's why they're able to still work on it. And it takes a lot to grasp that. People don't even really understand how complicated computer programs are, and how many people work on those kind of projects, and that a lot of them started out as, you know, a single person maintaining it, and it's a bunch of spaghetti, and there's no comments, and it makes no sense. But the way they do it now, or at least hopefully the way they do it now, is with lots of comments and multiple authors, so the project can be handed off. And that's especially what we see in open source, where Bitcoin keeps going without, you know, any kind of person to pull it together. I mean, there's a couple people at the top that are reviewing the code and adding to the code, but just in general, it seems to do fine without any kind of governance. And that's the popular buzzword now, is all these governance blockchains, and they're better than Bitcoin. But I think even you don't have to be a libertarian to know that a thing that governs itself is better than a thing that is governed. And Bitcoin just seems to govern itself fine, with the exception of the B cachers who went on their own. So,
well, okay, you brought up many good points there, and definitely what is interesting here is that, yes, but Thomas, what happens if we do not have one central party that can tell anyone what to do, and that the people have to listen, and you know, then who is going to organize everything, and how are we going to eat, because nobody is going to be forced to bake the bread? That's anarchy. Well, yeah, exactly. Anarchy means anarchon, and without archon is Greek for ruler. It's without a ruler, no masters, no slaves. It doesn't mean no rules. There are many, many, many rules in Bitcoin, and they are unbreakable. But there is not one single ruler. And that might be the biggest invention that we've had since quite some time.
And you can have organized structures in anarchy. You can have codes and rules and things that you abide by, but you just don't have a ruler. A lot of times in America, anarchy is just this punk rock word. And you just think of the spiked hair and the multicolors, and it's not a real political movement. But if you read more about it, and I'm going to screw this up, but my friend told me about an author, I think Bakunin, somebody like that, big anarchist thinker, wrote lots of anarchist books, much more than just anarchy. It's a system. It's a potential system. And we see in Bitcoin, we see this kind of political anarchy actually working. They are able to get out a product, the Bitcoin code. They're able to protect it from outsiders, even when incredibly well-funded and owning all these exchanges and all these other things. People tried to flip Bitcoin over with the Bitcoin Cash thing. They wanted the whole name and everything. And they can get through it because this Bitcoin and open source just in general is a successful anarchist project. And again, people think you're burning down buildings or whatever, but we've got to get past that and go towards political anarchy, which is more something that we could discuss.
Exactly, absolutely. And you bring up the point of open source, and this is something that is really, really dear to my heart, because I think it is a huge misconception that is really killing us on many, many different levels. And that is the misconception of intellectual property. And because, well, there are two different kinds of goods in the economy. There are scarce goods, which is pretty much every good in the three-dimensional world. And you can think of it as something, if I have I have an apple and I give you that apple, now you have the apple and I no longer have it, okay? So with the act of me giving it to you, it is taken away from me. And this means that there can only be one rightful owner of this specific good. And there are different ways on we can structure who owns that stuff. And well, one really good idea is property rights. So, well, if you have created it, or if you have produced it, or if you have bought it, well, then it's yours. And then only you control it, and only you can say, what's up with that good. And that's why we have exchange with scarce goods, with goods that I give you, then I no longer have it. So that means that I have to get something in return, because otherwise I wouldn't do it voluntarily. Because if you start giving away all this stuff for free, well, sooner or later you're going to be bankrupt. But it's really important to realize that this only applies for scarce goods. Because what are non-scarce goods? A non-scarce good is something like an idea, a thought. If I have a thought, let's say my thought is, well, the World Crypto Network is the most amazing show ever, which is kind of true. If I have now formulated that thought in my mind, I've created this thought, and with my act of speaking out aloud this thought, I give this thought to anyone that is listening. But do I still have the thought? Well, yes, absolutely. But I just shared it. I made a copy and I sent the copy away. I still retain 100% of my original idea, and it is openly and publicly shared. And because I do not lose anything with sharing this thought, property rights do not apply, because it is a non-scarce good. It can be shared openly and freely with anyone all the time without any cost to the original thinker. And let's be honest, who has ever had an original thought? There is no new knowledge under the sun. And everything that we are because of our previous experiences. And that all comes together in this symbiotic relationship of thoughts and ideas being shared. And if you share the idea, not only does it not lose in value, on the contrary, it increases in value. Because the more people have the idea, the more people will maybe understand it and live by it. And in that way, when sharing our ideas openly, we create a much better world without any cost whatsoever. And that's why I think the internet is such a beautiful, beautiful technology, because it is this idea of non-scarce good. If I have a PDF document, I make a copy, I send it to you, I still retain the original. And you have, well, a copy, but it's still the original, And you can do the same thing. So the internet is a network of non-scarce goods. And this comes down to the open source mentality, to actually share the ideas, to be open with them. And with sharing it, create the maximum value that you can get. And that's why I'm such a big fan of open source. And I imagine you too, Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I always wanted to run Linux on my computer, but I still have a Mac, and I had Windows before that. But I'm more of an applications user. I want my video editing software to run really well. That's what's important to me. And Linux, that's not important to them. But I was going to say, you were talking about computers. I was going to say, essentially, the computer is a copy machine. For all intensive purposes, it was really invented by Xerox, right? The mouse you're using, the graphical interface, Macintosh stole that, Windows stole that. As Bill Gates once said to Steve Jobs, he said, I saw of it more like we both had this great uncle named Xerox. And when I broke into his house to steal the television, you'd already gotten it. So, and that's the best, right? Because it's a copy machine. And that's when I got to Bitcoin the first time, I kind of shrugged my shoulders and I said, I'll do what I do with everything else on the computer. I'm going to make a copy of that. I'm going to spend those Bitcoin twice. I'm going to copy my digital money. This is going to be fantastic. I'm going to make so much money. But then that didn't work, right? They had a way around that. They wouldn't let me double spend that Bitcoin. So amongst all this data, like you could download this show and you could make a copy and you could upload it. And you could do whatever you want with it. And you could get images, and you could get web page and text and PDF files. You can scrape data out of any uptight container that they put that data in, except Bitcoin. You can't seem to make a copy of this Bitcoin. And that's what's so exciting about it, is we have this network of shareable data. And then we have some of this data that's special and unique. And that's what people need to know, right? That's what they're not seeing.
And why is it special? Because in this network of non-scarce good that can be shared freely and openly, out of spontaneous order, out of anarchy, something beautiful arose. And that is Bitcoin. Because now, for the first time, we have scarce goods in a network of non-scarce goods. This is something that has never happened in the history of humankind. It is unique in every shape or form. And understanding this and its implications of having a scarce good that behaves like a non-scarce good, but still retains its scarcity, that is mind-blowing and world-changing. Because now we have this non-scarce good that is by definition free and open and, well, anarchy. But it still retains the most important right, the most important thing that we have to organize society, which is property rights. And now for the first time, this internet of non-scarce goods has property rights. And if you know a bit about economics, this has already blown your mind.
It's really exciting stuff. I want to give a shout out to Bob Morton in the chat. Thanks so much for the $20 donation. Remember, you could send us funds through Super Chat or by joining the Patreon down below or sending us Bitcoin. I see a lot of people are talking about EOS because we were talking about governance systems and how Bitcoin doesn't have one, and we don't have to have Satoshi's vote on things if we want, Bitcoin or something. And yeah, I don't want to be critical of EOS, but they're having a heck of a time over there. Just the basics, and I only know the basics. They didn't make a test net. So when they launched their software on the real net, it blew up, and they didn't have a test net to go back to. So you don't have to be a computer science genius to say that was a mistake. And then now I see this thing about Larimer saying we should just throw out the whole EOS constitution. So all of the voting and things, he just wants to throw out the developer. And then at the same time, I'm hearing in the chat that Block One, some company that owns a lot of EOS, has decided to start voting with it. So we have this question about, can an exchange vote for its users? Does it have to offer them an individual vote, or can they just vote in mass because they hold all the private keys, right? They want to vote themselves the king of EOS. Who's going to stop them? They're the biggest exchange. They have the most of that stuff. So this is the problem with voting systems. They don't always turn out the way you want. Maybe they had good plans. Maybe they were going to do good things with their voting and involve the community, but we see what happens. And it's not that hard to predict this. So on the other side, we have Bitcoin, a system with no voting. Max, what do you think about EOS and what's been going on? Should they have made a test net? Is blockchain government? Is this governance idea a cool idea? Is this just another fad like blockchain?
I mean, EOS is such a joke, and it would be funny if they would have not raised like over $1 billion. I mean, holy shit,
I think 4 billion.
You raised 4 billion with a B, with a Bitcoin B. You raised $4 billion, and you don't even build a test net. Are you fucking serious? I mean, come on. This is just unacceptable in every shape or form. And I think it's so funny. Over the last 100 years, the banking system is got pretty horrible, and we found out like firsthand how bad it can be to have a banking system that is governed, a banking system that is controlled by an elite group of people that can do pretty much whatever they want. And well, the last 100 years, maybe we're a lot of war, a lot of economic crisis, and probably not that good. It might have been a bit better, And so out of blue on January 3rd, 2009, Satoshi publishes the code and runs the software. And the only point why Bitcoin exists is to stop governance, to end violent control over others, because we have already figured out that it does not work. And now all those projects coming, well, but Bitcoin does not have any governments. Well, of course, it's a bug. It's a feature, not a bug. This is how it is supposed to be. This is the only point why we have Bitcoin, because we do not want to have governance. We want to have freedom. And the Bitcoin Cash debacle is the perfect example for that. There was a small minority that had a big amount of influence, and they tried to take away the freedom of us all and well, to kind of force us onto this new system. A hard fork is a forceful intervention, of course. Yeah, you have to upgrade, otherwise you will get out of here, right? And they tried to do this, and in the incumbent system and like the EOS system or any other stupid governance blockchain, they would have succeeded because they are well funded, they were well organized, and they did a really good attack on Bitcoin, if you want to call it an attack. Well, what happened?
I think it was an attack. I think it was, even if it was unorganized and not government sponsored, meaning that a much better attack could use the same hard fork structure. I think it's starting to look more and more like Bitcoin Cash is an attack on Bitcoin, especially when it comes to this name confusion nonsense. Every article, it's the real Bitcoin, it's the vision of Satoshi. It's in the title of the white paper, but we didn't read the rest of the white paper. We just read the title. So none of these arguments convince me, but I see them every day, and they're paid by people to do this. It's an attack.
But what happened? That is the beautiful thing. We now no longer have governments in money. We have anarchy in money. And so what happens is that the minority that wanted to forcefully rule, well, we just ignored them. They split off, but we ignored them. Bitcoin Cash didn't really happen for me. Yes, of course, I have a few Bitcoin Cash. I pretty soon sold them, but it really didn't affect us. Bitcoin kept going. They made a copy of it. Yeah, of course, do it. Clone it. What is it called? Forkgen.lol. Like 5 mouse clicks, and you have your own Bitcoin Cash with the logo, maybe rotated a bit more to the other side. Do it. Well, but because you can do it so easily, this means that the copy that you do better be really good. Because if it is not good, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just no perfect words, and that I choose voluntarily to take.
Excellent stuff. And just getting distracted by the chat. They're talking about EOS. Some people say that they sold their Bcash at the bottom, but it still felt good. And don't worry about that, because it was free money. If you got Bcash and you sold it, you got more Bitcoin, maybe you got some fiat, maybe got a new laptop, free money. You can't complain. So yeah, I hope they do it again.
Well, but there are many external costs to this hard fork, and we still carry them out right now. Well, of course, there was the spam attack on the Bitcoin mempool, yes, but also just the whole name confusion and all the energy that it just drained from the developers. I mean, dude, Eric Lombroso, that poor soul, he was fighting his ass off to get SegWit on Bitcoin. And just imagine like the manpower that he could have spent for a couple of years if that whole debacle didn't happen, on building, not just trying to integrate the already good software that we know that is good, but working on the next new software. And all that manpower that got drained is a huge cost. Yes, it might not be, you might not see that, the costs might be hidden, but nevertheless, there are many costs here. And this great coverage of the SegWit and SegWit 2x and Bitcoin Cash debacle. So I just encourage you all to go back into the archives of the World Crypto Network and look through all that stuff. It's amazing high quality content and a bunch of stuff. So thank you, Thomas, very much for doing that.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I feel for Eric too, because Eric is a scientist and he pretty much, I think he invented SegWit. I don't want to get out of school here, but maybe he had help and stuff, but he just invents things. He makes things. And for him, it was always a scientific argument. He'd say, we can't have bigger blocks. It makes the Bitcoin airplane too heavy. It'll cause us problems in the future. The nodes have to get bigger, all of these things. But this whole time, I don't think it was a technical argument. I think that basically under the old system, certain miners could use ASIC boost, get a 30% boost on their mining. If you know anything about that, they probably sold all of their investors that we have a 30% advantage and we're going to make 30% more money than any other miner in the world. So why would you invest with them? They raised $1 billion. They had $4 billion in profit. They're an incredibly huge company. And I think they could not give up this ASIC boost. And if you really come down to it, we have real Bitcoin and then you have Bitcoin Cash with ASIC boost. And when you're out there promoting Bitcoin Cash and saying you don't see anything wrong with them trying to steal the name, you don't see anything wrong with them saying it's Satoshi's original vision when we know it's obviously not, you have to understand who you're working for, who you're playing for. And if you're getting paid by the miners, great, take their money, be a shill or whatever. If you're not getting paid by the miners and you believe in Bitcoin Cash and you are denying this 30% advantage of ASIC boost, I don't know. You need to check your premises. Something is wrong with your initial thoughts.
And just on a technical side, SegWit is genius. It is amazing on every level. Not only can it increase the block size without a hard fork, it can decrease the transaction size of each transaction, and it can allow us to further increase the to increase to update the protocol without doing a soft fork, but by just changing the the index number. And all that together, plus all the stuff that because now with SegWit we can get like Schnorr signatures and BLT signatures and all that other fancy stuff on there. It's just on a technical point of view, on all sides, it is amazing. The only disadvantage that SegWit has is that it breaks ASIC boosts. And that is the only negative thing that we have in SegWit. Well, who fought really, really hard against SegWit? Well, the Bitcoin Cash folks. Who were they back behind? Well, Bitmain. Oh, a huge chunk. And, well, maybe guess why?
Well, and people are asking in the chat, they want us to go back over ASIC boost. I can give you just a basic explanation. It's not technically right, but they're trying to guess some kind of formula in Bitcoin. And the way that it was set up, there's a first half and a second half, and that the witness was inside of this formula. Well, when they move the witness or the signatures out of the block in segregated witness, it messed up ASIC boost's ability to guess half of this formula. They could guess half of it before they even started mining. So they had this 30% jump on everyone else because they could guess it based upon the previous blocks or something. So basically, this was a software that someone wrote. Then Bitmain used this software without paying for the license. So they're actually probably in violation of the ASIC boost software. They upgraded their miners specifically to run this software. There's certain codes and things people can see. And that's my basic understanding of ASIC boost. Is it pretty close, Max?
Well, I just learned a bunch from that statement of yours, so you definitely taught me on that. I did not know that detail, and I will look more into it. But it's interesting because as always, you have to follow the money. And if someone is fighting this hard to prevent something, well, look really closely. Yeah.
And people are saying in the chat that Bitcoin Cash is better for payments or purchases than Bitcoin. But by that same logic, Dogecoin is better, Litecoin is better, Feathercoin is better. I don't know, any coin that has a lower fee is better. But that's not going to be the most reliable network. If you were being, taken or something, and they had to pay the money to get you back, you'd want to use the Bitcoin network. What if Dogecoin goes down? What if the only person still mining Feathercoin decides to stop mining Feathercoin that day? You'd lose, like, your money would just sit there. Like, reliable networks are worth paying for. So
Absolutely.
choice. Yeah.
And of course, Bitcoin cannot solve any problem and every problem. Of course not. It is a limited network that will grow over time, as Andreas said. We will fail gracefully to scale, and we will do so continuously. And yes, eventually we will have the capacity to serve billions and billions and billions of transactions. We will. It'll take time. And the beautiful thing is that, well, okay, they might say, well, but Bitcoin is no longer useful in payments. Well, it kind of was no longer useful for small payments for like a month in like December. But hey guys, I've been sending 1 Satoshi per byte transaction since February again. And before then up till like the middle of November. And hey, I mean, what else do you want? And transaction fees, low transaction fees, although they are really, really cool and really, really nice, are not the main feature of Bitcoin. Fiat currencies have low transaction fees. Well, do we want to have that? No. Censorship resistance, that is the main innovation here. Decentralization, self-ownership, and running a full node. That is what we want to have, not small transactions. We will get there. We will get there. Give us time. Let the cypherpunks write code. We will get there. Trust us. It will take time, yeah. But just don't rush it.
It's also worth mentioning, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Bitcoin Cash had as many transactions as Bitcoin, the price of using Bitcoin Cash would raise, and they would have difficulty keeping their network running. Any of these altcoins where you can get low fees, it's because no one's using them. They all have scaling problems, which will become apparent when anyone starts using them. So it was one thing for Roger to move around that money on Dash and say, oh, I can move $1 million for a penny. It's like, yeah, no one's using Dash, man. Like, if Bitcoin's a network people are actually using, it's popular. We worked hard. People talked about it to make it popular. They spread the word. Everybody giving out those dollars. That's what did it. It's not just, you can't just, fiat and say Dash, right? To use the actual definition of the word fiat. But yeah. So it's just a bunch of nonsense. But I think we talked about Bitcoin Cash enough. Let's go now towards the future of Bitcoin, and also just the future of World Crypto Network. What kind of shows would you like to do here on Max? Max? What kind of shows would you like to see more of in the future?
Well, I am a huge fan of the call-in show, and I think it's an amazing idea. Why? Well, Bitcoin is difficult. It is really, really fucking difficult, and it requires holistic knowledge. You cannot only just be knowledgeable in one field and one field only. You will not understand Bitcoin that way. Bitcoin is this holistic connection of cypherpunk movement, of freedom philosophy, of cryptography and mathematics, of game theory, of economics, of sound monetary policy, of network topology, and it comes all together into this blob of knowledge. And to get a grasp on that is really, really difficult. And people have questions. They have a lot of questions, but they have no one to call. They have no hotline, no customer support hotline. Yes, they might meet a freak like us going around on the streets handing out Bitcoin flyers. Yes, and maybe they can talk to us if they are brave enough. Most of them are really shy and don't want to ask the questions that they think might make them look stupid. And that's why I think that having a talk show where they can actually call in, ask their questions, or just listen to it and listen to other people asking the questions and just listening to the answers like that. I think that's really amazing. I equally love the Q&A sessions that Andreas Antonopoulos is doing, which are amazing. There's so much knowledge in there. And yeah, just having that is fantastic. And I would absolutely want to support you to increase the availability of this call-in show. You live in the States, you have all the Western Hemisphere. I live in Central Europe, so I have this huge area of as many people. And yeah, just having different time zones available and just talking Bitcoin.
And Max and I don't need to be the only people doing this. You can join us.
Yeah.
You can join us by calling in. Like Max said, a lot of people think their question might be stupid, but for every question I get that is on that might be stupid range, there's 5 other people in the chat who are like, I didn't know that. I wanted to know that. That was something I wanted to know too. So it really does help everyone when you call in. And if you're on the other side of Bitcoin, you've been studying it for a while and you like to talk about it, you could be a host. It is difficult. You're going to get random questions. As this idea grows, we're going to get more prank callers and jokes and stuff, but we'll figure out a way to work with that. But for now, it's still pretty small, so we can do a one-on-one question and answer session. And as long as you're flexible, and Max and I were talking about this beforehand, if you want to seem like a know-it-all, the internet hates that. Like, I'm a clever guy and I don't want to seem like a know-it-all because the internet is going to slam you down for whatever you think you know, chess, books, movies, whatever. Oh, we've got 10 times that. And they're going to find you and they're going to crush you. So the main thing to do it when you're doing the call-in show, if you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer. If you know the answer partially, say that you partially know the answer, like my explanation of ASIC boost. You're not going to be able to write some code based on what I said, but I think the basics are correct and you can understand how moving the witness out changes the formula. And if you could guess the formula, you could win money faster. Together we can understand these ideas. And I'm reminded of, there's this great account that tweets, Richard Feynman tweets all the time. And Feynman said the ability to take something and break it down into smaller language and explain it is genius, and that simplicity is genius. And that a lot of times you'll look at an analogy and it's so simple and you're like, oh, that's easy. I could have thought of that, but you couldn't. The person who came up with the analogy did. And that's what we need is more analogies, more explanations, more ways to bridge this gap. And Max and I also talked about, Max is German, I'm American. Maybe you live somewhere else or you have a different style of speaking or presenting yourself. Don't give up. You're perfect for talking to your group. I can talk to computer nerds. Libertarians can talk to libertarians. Maybe you can talk to your unique subculture of people and you can bring them into Bitcoin and we can get their opinions and their views and we can add that to our mixture here. It's a negative term now, but it's a melting pot, right? Everyone mixes together and they all bring out good things, the different spices going together to use it in a positive. So I think there's a lot more for the World Crypto Network here, and people can join up. Just give us a call. Start being a regular caller. Work your way in. Get your headphones and your microphone set up. Get a quiet room, glass of water. That's basically what you need. And then you can be a guest. And if you work on being a guest enough, you can be a guest host. And then the sky's the limit. And there's a couple more things to know. World Crypto Network doesn't have any money. So as much as we would like to pay the people, and we think that this should be a job that you get paid for, and that's why I do the donations and things, because I'm trying to raise money out of this. So it's more of a job and less of a hobby. That's good. But I tell everybody to have something to plug, some kind of a seminar or their own donations or something that you're going to do, a book or something that you can help make a little money on it. And that way we're kind of agorists, right? We're volunteerists. We're saying, sell it yourself, be your own business. So be your own bank. So what do you think, Max? I said a bunch of stuff there.
Well, but that's good, right? So we have a bunch to talk about. Well, to the first thing that you said, that you have to know your limits and you have to know the limit of your knowledge. And that is really, really important. And if Bitcoin teaches you one thing, is that you have no idea. Nobody, absolutely nobody understands Bitcoin. We're just all here flying around guessing, honestly, because it's such a complex technology. We have I still don't know what Bitcoin is. And my mind gets blown with a new possibility pretty much once a day, twice a day. And knowing that and living that is really important. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's also the concept of crypto time. I've only been in Bitcoin 5 years now. That's not very long. There's a lot of things that I've done longer than 5 years, and I'm not even that old. But it seems more like I've been in Bitcoin 40 years. and you tell people that you're from 2013 or whatever, their first thing is, oh, you must be rich and retired. And the reality is, if you had no money in 2013, you could put it all into Bitcoin and you still kind of have no money now. You got to live, you got to sell some to live now and then, all that kind of thing. But that shouldn't matter. Everyone's into this crypto time. If you were in from last year, people are already calling themselves veterans. They went through a crash. They've gone up and down. They've seen all kinds of ICOs and things. They're like, yeah, I got it. I figured it out. And that's why we need more people talking about this, because it really is so new. And it really is, people every day are getting turned on to Bitcoin. They're hearing about it. Maybe they even heard about Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash first. And then eventually they come back and they're like, gosh, that Bitcoin sure does stick around. It's kind of like the Roman Empire. And if you know anything about the Roman Empire, that'd be a good thing to invest in. 2,000 years of Roman rule, pretty easy money. Yeah, we just got to keep going and spread the word about this Bitcoin. And we need everybody. And also, I don't know if it helps to say this because I think our audience is 93% male. But if you're a female or you know, anything else, and you want to talk about Bitcoin, we're here for you too. We're not actively not choosing them, but if you are out there in the 7% or maybe the 3%, depending on our numbers that day, join us. I don't know. People are jerks on the internet. They're still going to be a jerk to you, but we'll try to be nice. That's the best we got.
That's all we can do, right?
Yeah.
And absolutely, Bitcoin is not just for white men and geeks in their basement. No, it's most absolutely not. Bitcoin is for everybody. And I mean everybody. Bitcoin doesn't even care if you're a fridge. It just works. And this is the most neutral money we have ever had, other maybe than gold. And it is kind of a bummer that we have mostly a white male audience right now. And most is in America, a lot is in Germany and Central Europe. And to be honest, Bitcoin is not for those people. Bitcoin is most and foremost for the 5 billion people that either do not have a bank account at all or have one of like a horrible corrupt banking system, even more corrupt than the dollar and the euro, if you believe that. And it's for those people. And we are not in it for the money, as you sat down. As you are the freedom fighter from 5 years now. 5 years, guys. And you have done the show Mad Bitcoins and the Bitcoin group and here the WCN. You have put in so much fucking time and effort. It is unspeakable. And as you said, yes, you did not make a lot of money, and that is an absolute shame. And that's why it is really, really important, guys. If you think that this content is valuable, please, dude, if you have a few bits, a few satoshis, everything helps. And you joked earlier that the World Crypto Network is something like the CNN or like some other media outlet. Well, those guys have like big funding companies behind it. You're just Thomas. You're just a dude. And it's not easy to do that. And you need a lot of capital. And the question is, do you want to get your news from CNN? Do you want to get your news from Fox? Or do you want to get your news from an independent and a dedicated researcher that has done it, that has walked the walk and talked the talk for 5 years? 5 years, guys. This is incredible. And it is so important that we stick together and that we support each other on our way here towards liberty.
I think that's a good point, Max. And a long time ago, when I started this show, one of the things that inspired me was this Talking Head song called Found a Job. And in the song, David Byrne describes this couple, and they're always fighting and nothing is good. And they say, nothing's ever on tonight. And then they say, nothing's ever on. And then at some point in the song, they start making up their own shows, which might be better than TV. And there's the idea. When I go home at night, I have the choice to sit down and watch MSNBC and see what's wrong with Trump and get really depressed about it, or go upstairs and make one of these shows and talk to the audience. And I still watch a little bit of Trump news because I try to keep my hand in everything. But I find it's a lot better to make one of these shows. And the other thing that really inspired me is I saw now I can call them my friends, Davi Barker and Derek Freeman. But when I saw them on the TV on YouTube, I saw Peace News Now, and he was interviewing Davi Barker, and it was just kind of like this. And they were, in my opinion, they were kind of pretending to be on TV. They were pretending that it was a real interview, and they were pretending like I pretend that the Bitcoin group's a real show and these kind of things. And it really worked. And I watched them, and I watched the whole interview, and they talked about Bitcoin and Andreas and everybody back in the day. And I was like, I want to do that. I could do that. And then I did. And I didn't have a good microphone at first. And I didn't have a good camera, and I didn't know good sound or any of these things. And I tried to improve with every episode. And that's all you can do. And it's hard because you do a bad show and people are down on it. Or people were worried at the beginning of this show that Max was doxing himself, or they're going to take his identity, and maybe they'll take my identity, or maybe they'll think I'm not smart anymore, or they'll figure out a way to steal my Bitcoin or whatever. But you got to take those chances. The rewards are worth it. I've met some bad people. I met a lot of good people. I went to a lot of conferences, conventions, and then I also got to have chats like this with people in Germany. So I didn't know anybody in Germany before. And now I know a couple of people. So it's pretty cool, and it's getting better. So I think that the more and more people get into Bitcoin, the more we're going to have different groups of different people, different kinds of people on the World Crypto Network talking to you about Bitcoin, and just trying to be honest and tell the truth. And like you said earlier, Max, I think we were kind of talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where smart people know that there's someone smarter than them, but dumb people think that they're the smartest person in the room. So I think it's much better to be on that level where you're like, I'm clever, but Andreas is really smart. Zuko's really smart. Vitalik's really smart. I'm probably not in their league. And because you can see this, now you have the ability to not to judge everybody, but to like try to understand everybody and try to put them on that scale. But if you're that dumb person who's like, I'm the smartest person there ever was, you've locked yourself in a corner, because when you meet Vitalik, you're gonna be like, oh crap, he's a little smarter than me. And then you're going to meet all these other people. It's going to ruin your whole thing. So it's better to be smart and to think that other people are smarter than to be dumb and think that you're the smartest one. So
absolutely. And you are good in something. And if you don't know it yet, you will soon find it. But you will be, or you are an expert in a niche subject. And yes, Vitalik is a smart dude, and yes, Andreas is also really well intelligent. And yes, of course, but they are no gods. They have just as many flaws as you do. And yeah, maybe you don't see them, of course, because they don't show everything, because you don't know them that well. You maybe saw a couple of videos, but I mean, that's it. And they are just humans after all. And you are the expert in something. And the beautiful thing that economics teaches you, that you do not even have to be the most or the best expert in a niche subject in order to be productive, in order to do good for the society. No, rather, you only have to find that task which you yourself are marginally best at. So the task that if you can choose anything to do, what are you going to choose? And is that the choice that is really doing the best thing? And is it the most productive thing to do? And even though this task that is your marginally best task, even if the skills that you have in this specific task are inferior or less good than someone else, it is still advantageous for both of you to split your labor. It's called the division of labor. So for example, if you have a neurosurgeon that is really good at cutting open your brain and then doing the surgery up there, well, he might also be a really fast typewriter. And he might be the fastest typewriter in the world. But for him, being a brain surgeon is much more fulfilling, and he can solve many more problems that way than being a typewriter. So he is marginally better at being a brain surgeon than being a typewriter. And now his assistant, well, he might be also kind of like a good surgeon, but that's not his area of expertise. And he's a kind of good typewriter. He's a better typewriter than he's a surgeon, but he's still not that good a typewriter as the surgeon is. And so for him, he is a marginally better typewriter, but his boss, the brain surgeon, he is a marginally better surgeon. And now those two can exchange. They can voluntarily trade their services. And if the brain surgeon focuses on doing the brain surgery, and if the typewriter focuses on doing the typewriting, even though he's a worse typewriter than the surgeons, both are by definition always better off. And that's the beautiful thing in economics.
And I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately and reading some biographies, and I think that's another great way to set yourself up for the future, is to model yourself after someone else, to look at how they got their success. Usually, it's a bunch of hard work. Spoiler, but to see that and to see that it is possible. So I watched the Gilbert documentary and the Mr. Rogers documentary, and they're both very different people, but I saw them together as people who created a persona, wanted to do something to entertain or to educate children, and they went out there and did it. And now I'm watching the Gary Shandling documentary, and I'm reading the Robin Williams book, and I just feel like I'm getting so much knowledge from these people that came before me, comedians or other types of people. And there's just so much there that's available. So if you haven't looked at biographies or even just watching some documentaries, I think that's a great way to go. And maybe someday we'll be watching a documentary on Andreas, and it'll inspire a whole new group of people to talk about Bitcoin. It might not be so dire that Bitcoin is virtually unknown and virtually unused. It might be more like Bitcoin's used everywhere, and these kids just talk about it because they want to, or they just get a lemonade stand because they want to and sell things in Bitcoin. So I think there's a lot of future for that, and we're just getting started on Bitcoin and the World Crypto Network. So a lot more to do. We need a lot more people. If you're out there, send your email to Mad Bitcoins on Twitter. I'll get you into the Slack. That's the first step. The other thing you can do is start calling in to the Bitcoin Talk Show. I've been trying to do them kind of regularly in the morning, sometimes in the evening, though not as much. And then if we can, when we add Max's Bitcoin Talk Show to the network, then we'll have one of those in German time. Maybe when we add yours, we'll have one in local time for you. So let's work on it together. Let's work on it as a team, and let's make this thing better as a group. So Max, just in closing, where can people learn about more about what you're doing and what you're writing, and something in closing?
Something in closing. Well, I am rather active on Twitter. I got it basically just to connect with the people on Bitcoin Twitter because it's a great place to be. It really, really is. And the beautiful thing with Twitter is that you can customize your history, and you can get the most educated people. Just follow them, follow Nick Szabo, follow Andreas Antonopoulos, follow all the Bitcoin core devs, and follow Matt Bitcoins. Is a great follow as well. And there are a bunch of different people that you can follow, and that you can get the direct high quality information. So you don't get the watered down, buzzwordy, hype things, subjects that you get on the everyday news. No, you get it directly from the source. That's why I love Bitcoin Twitter. And you can find me there at Hillebrand Max, so just my last name then my first name. And I do have a project that is kind of dear to my heart, and it is a paper that I'm writing right now. It is a part of my bachelor study because I am still a student here in Germany. And this paper is going to be about anarchy in money. So basically why we neither need nor want government regulation in Bitcoin, and why it is just perfect the way it is right now. And this paper will lay out the Austrian School of Economics, focusing on monetary theory and, just what money is and why it is such a beautiful technology, and what its potential can be under a free money, and then the potential of having a coercive and a violent money as we have it now in the euro. And so this paper on anarchy and money will work out exactly that difference. And because I am such a huge, huge, huge proponent of open source and sharing ideas, I decided, or it was clear pretty much from the beginning, that I will write this paper in an open source process. So if you want to contribute, reach out. That's all you have to do. I'm really, really glad that you take your time out of that, and I'm really grateful if you do that. And definitely it is much appreciated. And that's all we can do, stick together and support each other. It's of course also written under the Creative Commons license, and you get the attribution and everything. But most importantly, you know, if you're knowledgeable in that stuff, or even if you're not, just read it and leave your feedback. And that's all we need. And you can find that on my personal website, which is towardsliberty.com, and then /anarchy, which is the hyperlink to the tag page where everything there is located. And this is also something that I might want to do here at the World Crypto Network. Is just incorporating my writing process over the next couple months into the shows that I'll be doing, and just talking about the topics. Maybe similar that, Thomas, you're reading your fantastic novel, To Satoshi with Love, which is not only really, really well thought out, but also hilarious. So I enjoy that all the time. And it might be a SegWit, something like that. So yeah, if you want to go to towardsliberty.com, there's, of course, the paper that I'm writing. And also, if you are interested in Bitcoin and in Austrian economics, and you're looking for a page with just a bunch of stuff that you can go study, I have my own personal library pretty much on there. A resource page where there are a lot of informations for Bitcoin is at towardsliberty.com/Bitcoin, and one for Austrian economics, which is towardsliberty.com/economics. There's a bunch of books there, and I enjoyed reading them all, and I can only recommend them to you.
And we did get some good comments the other day, Max, when you did that quote from the economics book or whether somebody was like, that is the greatest quote I've ever heard. So yeah, more of that, man. And we are watching the price of Bitcoin. It has dipped below $6,000. It's at $59.50 and perhaps falling more. So keep an eye on that if you like charts. They were talking about REM in the chat. They were only messing with me, but that doesn't matter. You get an REM quote anyway. So here we go. I'll try not to sing it. This is important. It says, this here is the place where I will stand. There isn't a number you can call a payphone. Let it ring a long, 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 long time. If I don't pick up, call back, let it ring some more. There you go. REM quote for you. Go look that up. And that's about it for this show. We're going to try to be back tomorrow morning with Bitcoin Talk Show. I might have more appointments. I'm doing a lot of unfortunate doctor's appointments lately, and that's going to mess up the schedule in the next week or so. But hopefully that'll be good, and they'll get their tests done, and they'll figure this thing out. So, but that's about it for this episode of Let's Meet the World Crypto Network. And remember, we have lots more of these to do. Andy Hoffman, Adam Meister, The Vortex. We got to get everybody on here and get their background and tell them why they started talking about Bitcoin on YouTube and why you should start talking about Bitcoin on YouTube. So until next time, be sure to keep giving out those dollars to people in Bitcoin so they can try it out. Tell all your friends about Bitcoin, hand out flyers about Bitcoin. Even when the price is down or up or whatever, you can still tell people about it. They could buy $5 worth or $20. They could give it a try and get started on this new monetary economy that we're building. And that's about it. Until next time, bye-bye.